And once again, we caution you. These stories are definitely not for the timid soul. So we tell you calmly and very sincerely, if you frighten easily, turn off your radio now.
Pour you some food.
Thank you.
Figured you're part of our family now. It's not much, but given what we've had, it's a lot. I should have been dead several times over.
Ain't that the truth for us all?
I think part of the reason I'm not is because people underestimate me. Don't underestimate me.
Excuse me?
I've seen you making the rounds and trying to play nice. But if you screw this up, mess with Daryl, I will slit your throat while you sleep. Enjoy your food.
This is the Bonus Material Podcast. I'm Thom Carnell.
And I'm Sean Smithson, and we're missing a couple of people tonight, aren't we, Tom?
Yes, we are.
Miss Heather Buckley is at Mad Monster Party in North Carolina.
And Langley J. West is at Monsterpalooza in Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Tearing it up.
Yeah. All those pictures on Facebook, if you're not on our group, go to the Bonus Material Podcast page and request to be in the discussion group. And Langley's been putting up all kinds of crazy pictures from the sculpts that he's seeing there and the people he's meeting. Super cool.
Yep. We have a lot to cover this episode, but is there anything we want to talk about before we get started?
Yeah, actually, speaking of Facebook and our Facebook page, dude, I think it's time for us to give a couple of shout-outs.
Okay.
Our buddy TJ and our buddy Timo, thank you so much for listening all the time. And also Emily and Chip Fed, who we met briefly in Seattle.
Did we?
One of the many people that we through.
I drink it. Names come and names. It's hard.
Yeah. I drink too. I'm drinking right now, as a matter of fact, and other things.
Yeah. Ashad, those are good people, and they're smart, and they call us on our bullshit, so that's good.
Yeah, totally. And it's awesome having them in the discussion group. Also, let's mention a couple of podcasts that we like, because I see a lot of hoarding, and we don't hoard our listenership, and hopefully other shows don't either. So if you like this show, we're going to recommend a couple of other podcasts, and I'll start with the Word Balloon, wordballoonblogspot.com. Easily, in my opinion, the best comic book podcast there is. Super in-depth interviews. And what about you, Tom?
I'm going to go with the Dana Gould Hour with Dana Gould. Awesome. One of the best produced podcasts out there.
The last episode had me on the floor, man.
Yeah.
It kept me awake. I was going night-night with it, and it actually kept me awake. I'll mention one more, and that's Monster Party, hosted by our friend Matt Weinhold and a bunch of other crew of crazy monster kid maniacs. And I like the tone of it because it ranges from the old-timey stuff to, like, they did a TV horror episode and dropped a lot of old tele-horror film titles that I was super happy to hear mentioned.
I think it's very similar to what we do, not in an uncomplimentary sense, but the idea that our heads are in the same space. We're covering a lot of the same ground.
Except they're not mean.
Yeah. And I'm going to say a shout to Greg Proops, The Smartest Man in the World, which is the smartest podcast in the world. It's really great. And if you get a chance to see him live, see him live. So there's that. So I guess we should get started, if there's nothing else. We're going to talk about The Walking Dead. It's the season finale of Season 5.
Yeah.
And we've both seen the episode, the last episode.
Yep. Moments ago.
So do we have any, out of the box, before we start digging deep, let's clear some brush a little, and sort of, I think it's important to state, for each of us to sort of state where we stand on the show. And I will let you do that first.
Overall, I really, really like this show. And while I've had my ups and downs with it, like season 2 and part of 3, I called Lawn of the Dead, when they were standing on Herschel's farm.
Yeah.
It turned into Yawn of the Dead. But there's always been a character that I've been able to engage with. I was actually a huge fan of Shane up until his death, and I agreed with most of his decisions.
And it seems that a lot of other people now agree with him, in light of recent events.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Rick's
similarities are there, and being called out in memes across the internet.
Oh, really? I haven't seen those.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, overall, I mean, shit. I never miss an episode, and I think that says a lot. Even when it's the show I love to hate, it was still built on love. And in light of the recent episodes, I think the show is doing a very admirable job about bringing the zombie mythology into TV.
Okay. I dearly love the zombie genre. I wrote a book about it, and available on Amazon. And out of the box, I'll say I'm really glad for a network-based horror-themed show that gets as graphic as Walking Dead does. So that's important. I think the effects, Nicotero, every show, even the zombies that you see at a distance are cool and inventive, and the effects are beautiful. I want it to be good so badly that when it stumbles, I get affronted by it. And
well, you know what? Let me jump in here and ask you, what was one of the big first stumbles the show had, in your opinion? And maybe
that's easy. According to the official timeline that The Walking Dead has sort of blessed. So on day 14, Rick...
Oh, boy. We just became a Trekkie.
is left at the hospital by Shane.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Yeah. On day 60, he wakes up and stumbles out of the hospital. So that meant that he lay there for 46 days with no food, no water, no bed change, no bedpan. So right then and there, I go, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense.
Quick fix then. What would you have done? And I'll even plug my nose and go first. I would have decompressed it into 72 hours.
Agreed.
So when he comes out of it, he's still alive, but he's really run down, because after about 4 or 5 days, he would be dead.
Yeah. And that's another part of the problem, is that their timeline gets so squidgy because I think they're in two streams. There's on one hand, there's the people who have never read the books, and then there are the other ones who have read the books. And if you anytime they deviate from the books, those fans that love the books, as with most of these kind of things, start screaming bullshit and blah, 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 blah. So the writers, instead of saying, here's my vision, here's what we're doing, there's all this stuff that sort of happens because it sort of needs to happen to get us to the next part that the comic fans remember. Say again?
But it fucks up the timeline.
Yeah. And also now, you also have two giant monkey wrenches into your narrative machine that is already established in the books, and that's what I call the Daryl Carroll situation. They're in there who... Carol should be dead. Daryl's non-existent. So now the writers themselves, Kirkman, I'm going to quote something. Kirkman said at the Amazing Arizona Comic Con last year, when we sit down to write this show, one of the first things we deal with is, how does Daryl Dixon change this story? Because we always start from, okay, we like this part in the comic. How are we going to do it, considering that Daryl's there, right? Later.
Okay, let's stop here for a minute. Maybe that's the problem with Daryl's character, because I know that we both agree that he's just kind of a spinning wheel right now. You know, he either needs to die to create a huge reaction among the fans, or let's just say there needs to be a big shift in a major character trait
Mm-hmm.
in him because now he's just window dressing and he's kind of the dude, and we both met Norman and he's fucking awesome. He's
Yeah,
one
and
of those fucking,
he's called out Carol as being awesome, and in light, especially in light of recent events, Carol's a badass bitch.
Totally.
Carol's one of the only reasons that I go, all right, well at least she's around to fuck with people because that gets scary. The scene with her and the husband,
kid, the
husband
tonight,
awesome,
yeah.
very very cool, very cool.
She's the quiet confrontationalist now,
Right. Yeah. And you almost start to question like sanity and all that other stuff. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, where they've got all these problems going in because they want to do something different, but they can't do anything different because they've got the people who read the books.
You know what I'd do? I would just say fucking different story.
I've advocated
different universe.
I've advocated this for a long time. The first thing you do is you shoot Rick in the face. That throws everything up in the air, and you're clean with the audience. It says we did this as a set to get us off in another direction so that we wouldn't be hobbled by the book.
Yeah,
which gives me hope for this spin-off they're doing.
You know what I started doing is I stopped reading the comic around issue 50. I was one of the people who bought 2 issues, and I didn't do it much back then when the comic first came out at Comics in Berkeley, which you probably know, Tom.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
And I stopped around issue 50, and the show was in swing because I just figured I'd write out the show, and then I just go back and binge read the comics because those comic books that's one graphic story I would recommend reading fast. Usually I say try to slow down and read in real time and appreciate the art, but it's just like the show, it's talking heads. So I'm just going to go back and read the comic book after the show's done, and just it's its own entity, man.
Yeah, well, I think they have to. It's hard to make drama.
Can I say one more thing about the comic? And I'd actually like that because it would alleviate redundancy. I wouldn't be reading a comic book of a show that I just watched.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to say it's hard to create drama because when any time anyone picks up a bat, the fan base online goes crazy and starts talking Lucille, right? So they're like, oh, this is going to happen, and Negan's around the corner, and no. And so as a screenwriter, how do you fight that? Because the audience it's literally give them what they want.
You're saying that the writing is potentially compromised by such a vocal and rabid fan base.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think it comes down to not so much about storytelling, but more about commerce. And that's my problem with serialized television anyway. And we've gone over this on the podcast before. But it's like it's not there to tell you a story. It's something to keep you coming back and keep you.
There are people who watch that show now because they bought a shirt at Walmart first.
Right.
And it's the truth.
No, they've done it. They've done a terrific job. But it's designed. There's not a classic 3-act structure. It's not designed to come to an end and have a point. Even Kirkman said that. He saw the great thing about it is I can just keep writing it. And that's perfect for a comic because that's what you want your audience to do. But don't come at me and say that I'm doing groundbreaking storytelling because it's, you make points, but you don't have a point.
And I think the new show is exemplary of that too. It's funny. I did Salt Lake City Comic-Con, and we do a zombie panel every time. And it was about 2 weeks before the new show was announced. And when we were doing the Q&A part of the panel, somebody asked what I thought the future of zombie TV was, and I pointed at what was it, Babylon Fields or Babylonian Fields?
Babylon Fields, yeah.
Yeah, which you can find the pilot on YouTube. It's never
great.
had an official release, so I'll go ahead and that's a really out-of-the-box zombie thing. But I said, you're not going to see a different take on zombies. You're going to see the Law and Orderification, the CSI-ing of the Walking Dead franchise. You're just going to see the Walking Dead maybe, and I think I said Japan, or they'll pick a different production crew, they'll put it somewhere else or in a different timeline, but you'll just see more Walking Dead.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're putting
bang.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're putting it in someplace else, L.A. It's a prequel. It's
easy to shoot, full of actors too.
Absolutely, and it's going to take place before Rick, like the time between the outbreak and when Rick wakes up.
No,
and the present timeline. Yeah, when it catches up to the present timeline.
I'll say this: I'm looking forward to the show. I really like the casting. The lead woman is from one of my favorite shows, Treme, where she played a chef. I forget her name offhand. It's also one of those shows where it's like, I'm glad CGI actually exists, because they can go out and take pictures of these LA streets that are iconic, that everybody's going to recognize, and then turn them into desolate wastelands. And I'm looking forward to seeing Los Angeles laid to waste. As long as my friends down there stay safe in the mythology of the show. But yeah, back to the point. We're just going to see a widening of that franchise. I'm surprised they haven't slated a feature film yet, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure that's in the offing at some point.
It's been talked about in the room.
Well, they're already into games and that kind of thing. I mean, the thing that I think that would save it and a lot of this of what we're talking about on television is limited runs. Here's a story. Here's something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you can all follow it.
Luther does that beautifully on the BBC.
Sure.
The Idris Elba kind of Columbo meets Dirty Harry show, which if any listeners haven't seen it, I think it's still available on Netflix. 3-4 episodes.
Yeah,
it's really a really long movie.
They're making a new one, I heard.
And even like Prime Suspect, the old Helen Mirren crime drama, did that. They had these nice long 12 episode sprawling arcs, but you could stop if you wanted to. You had read that book, so to speak.
Right. So inherently, I think the ground is rich. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's so much that could be doing, and I think personally, that's why the zombie thing is sort of stumbling, and I'm no pun intended, because it's always, everyone has a very limited idea of what's possible within it.
You know what? I mean, just sitting here spitballing that with you and looking at it that way. I mean, if you're going to do another Walking Dead show, set in the future when everything's kind of calmed down. Like, one of my favorite parts of World War Z by Max Brooks is the afterlog stuff. Like, we've kind of won the zombie war. There are these minor threats that pop up, and you still have to be on your guard. But I could take a story about the restructuring. I mean, a political drama that takes place in a universe where a zombie uprising had happened. Because it would change.
Look at Myra Grant's feed.
Right, I've not read that.
It's exactly that. There are zones you don't go into, and getting in and out of buildings, you have to sort of put your finger on a pad, and it takes a blood sample to see if you're infected. It's very sort of what happens next.
That's one of the things I like about 28 Weeks Later, actually, when the kids get into the city.
But again, so if you're gonna settle in and say, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and it's gonna be a lawless land, and then you settle in. But I think that in 5 seasons we've covered a lot of ground, and needlessly, where diversions didn't really need to happen. But the show is, at the end of the day, how do you argue that the show is insanely popular?
Well, you don't, but I mean, so is Motley Crue. They're only good in an ironic way at this point for people like me. But fucking popular schmopular, my main concern is it doesn't have to adhere, and I don't want it to adhere to the source material, but it needs to honor it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the tone of the show has nailed that. And I think if they can pepper more episodes like the big opening and the big ending arc, and drop one of those in the middle of a season,
yeah,
that might be a good idea. And I wanted to bring up, and you can stop me if you want to interject there, but the problems with the mid-season for me now are the Bush League directors, man. I mean, I love Greg Nicotero. I've had the honor of meeting him. He's fucking awesome. He's insanely talented. And I actually got to interview him right after he had done his first short film about a talent agency for monsters, basically. And while I liked it, it came off more like a reel. And the episodes he's directed this season have been a little, and I don't know if The Walking Dead is a show where anybody should be practicing. The Jennifer Lynch episode, as you predicted, Tom, was badass.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. If anyone knows the zombie genre, I'm going to say it's Greg Nicotero.
Yeah.
So I give him a pass because I think there are bigger hands on the wheel than his. Even though he's the director of the episode, the studio is still sitting there going, well, this is what we need to have happen.
I still think we're in the fight too of genre reclaiming its serious face.
Hopefully. And remember with this thing that not quite out of the box, but within a short time, its major creative force was plucked from it in Darabont. So that I think we're still seeing sort of ramifications of that, of them tying up these ends that were being done in Darabont under Darabont's helm and establishing new ones, but still trying to adhere to the book. It's
That's another thing I'll give the show, though, is they got over that hump. It's not showing up on the screen. Mm-hmm. It shows up very subtly in the regret of some of the actors. If anybody wants to look in our archives, there's an interview I did at FanX in Salt Lake City with Lori Holden, and I asked her what the tone was like when he was let go, and she just said we all just kind of wept. But they kept working, know. And I think the show's done a good job.
Well, there are
in his absence.
There are moments that in every episode that are brilliant. Either because they get the effects right, or they catch a sort of certain tone or chemistry between two actors, and that's fine, I think. But take a step back from that, and where are we funneling it towards? It just seems like
T-shirts, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I guess my biggest complaint is that it just feels like shit happens, and then well, of course it propels them forward, but going over this timeline, it's amazing. For example, how many times Glenn has been injured, or Rick has been injured.
Right.
And you start thinking, like, what is this guy? He's shot, he's stabbed. People get, spoiler, someone gets shot and then starts fighting, and people are sticking their thumbs in the bullet wound, and they're fighting and besting the person, and it's like
the off-screen thing that you're not aware of, and I have this on good authority, is that those characters do rabbit foot enemas.
Yeah.
Twice a week.
But
Daryl supplies the rabbit feet, by the way.
But the idea that and I'm sure this is just me, but it's like shit has ramifications. Someone gets shot, they're fucking maimed. Someone gets stabbed in the leg or gets their leg cut off. That's years of physical therapy, and it's not like, well, I guess just give me a couple of crutches and off I go. And it's what drives me crazy. It's like, this could be so good. This could be so good. But instead, we just sort of opt for shit to happen.
Remember that Facebook post I put up a while back on a discussion group where I said they should bring in other directors? Let me rectify that. Now that you say that, and saying it could be so good, I would like to see The Walking Dead almost do something like The Wire did. bring in these guys who have written about this shit, who are really putting a nice spin on it, or some really smart guest writers like a Scott Snyder, you know, who wrote The Wake. He writes, comics.
Well, again, I don't.
Or Joe Hill, have Joe Hill write a 3-episode arc.
As a writer, I think that you don't. While you want to go off to comics because they're the source material, I think there are other people out there that are doing equally well in the same genre. People like Jonathan Mayberry.
No, I meant prose writers too.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody
misunderstood.
Anybody who works within the genre of the zombie mythology who's done something worthy of it. I mean, shit, I'll throw out Max Brooks. I mean, bring him on for half a season, Put him in a room with John Skip or something. I'm just throwing out names, but conceptually, because The Wire
Max Brooks was a dick to me at a con once. So
yeah, but I mean, I'm just like I said, these are just names.
I know.
Like the Wire had some of the greatest crime writers writing for it after the first season because they loved the show so much.
Right.
So take it to the choir, man.
Well, I think, but again, we keep coming back to the fact that people were expecting Michonne to show up, and if you didn't deliver Michonne, man, we risk losing viewers. So again, I think the smart.
I really like her character right now, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. She just is a perpetual frowny face.
I think that's going to change.
I hope so.
I think that's what Alexandria is all about.
Yeah, I hope so.
The mom she used to be is going to come back.
Soften her up. Yeah.
And shit, I'm even calling love interest next season.
Really?
Uh-huh. See, again, having to adhere to the comic book, I'd almost make her and Rick, have kind of an understanding, like I'm not into you romantically, but
I would hope that the longer it's like touching a gyroscope, and English on a ball. You know what I mean? I hope that the longer they deviate from the comic, the more they'll be in fertile new ground. That they'll be like, we're off in the toolies now, and we don't have to worry about where we're going because we've already sort of set that whole thing aside. I mean, we did it with Star Trek, right, for their reboot. So why not? Can't we do it for The Walking Dead?
Like I said, I'm really surprised they haven't announced a feature film yet.
Yeah,
they do one movie a year.
Well, again,
and Game of Thrones. I could see Game of Thrones doing that as well.
But the problem is that, and this is a whole other discussion, but then you enter into the idea that you have this whole Marvel, MCU, DCU avalanche of shit.
Sure you do.
And
shit, they're doing that with the Transformers now, dude.
Yeah, I just read that. Everything is being dusted off. Everything's being dusted off. I just heard that they're putting this in the same way they're putting X-Files back on the air. They're putting Coach back on the air. Yeah, and it's like, is there a point for this? It's like, are they all in a home somewhere?
I love Craig T. Nelson, but I never watched that show.
But so I guess we're at a point where I think we're pretty clear on where we stand. Do we want to go through this sort of?
Well, let me bring up the effects homages real quick.
Okay, do that.
Something I wanted to mention, like when they were when they were trapped in the tunnel last season, Glenn and the girl, and Bub shows up in his denim jacket. Caught that immediately, and I was super grateful for that because I think they do it without being ham-fisted. Tonight, in the season finale of season 5, we had a machete head that was, to me, an obvious reference to one of the most classic kills in Dawn of the Dead. And then we had the severed head on the ground, and I'm wondering if that's the Nicotero head that they put in, that was built for Day of the Dead, that's been in everything since.
Right. It's like, it pops up on all these weird places.
It's like the car from the Evil Dead, that every Sam Raimi movie. And every time I see a completely decapitated head that gets something done to it, and it's a KMB joint. I'm always, is that the Nicotero head? It's got to be.
Speaking of, I'm just going to mention this.
And one last reference. I'm sorry. But before I forget, when they hit the canned food plant tonight, how almost a Roger moment was that?
Right.
You know, you see the semis set up outside, and they're going to take these trucks, and
how great was that tow chain?
That was cool.
Yeah, the tow chain was cool. And that's part of the reason why I hang in there, because I see these homages. By the way, they did Jack from American Werewolf in London at one point.
Oh, right, they did.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So that's the thing. You can tell that there are minds at work that are so on board, but then there's someone else driving the boat.
Actually, how much do you want to bet that those are just like flash moments? Like, okay, let's just make him look like Bub, in the effects shot. It's like, oh, there's a denim jacket sitting there. Dude, take that denim jacket off. Let's slick his hair back and make him look like Bub. How much do you want to bet it just pops? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, again, it's at the end of the day, it's about story. And at whatculture.com, there's an article about the things that they think are wrong, and they're pretty compelling, about aimless storylines. The zombies look cool but are boring, and that's one of the things I want to talk about before we get into much else. Is that one of the other things that really bothers me as a zombie purist is, I wrote a book about guys fighting zombies, and the zombies were formidable, even if they were old ladies and children. So the way that the zombies in Walking Dead now have become sort of pop-up annoyances really offends me. At one point when you go, in tonight's episode, when Aaron and Daryl are in the car, at one point they screw their testicles to the sticking point and say, all right, okay, we're going to do this together, essentially die, and that's before Morgan shows up. So they're going to open the door and fight off what is essentially dozens and dozens of zombies. And they live. Glenn tonight lived. That looked like a dead moment to me. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah. I thought that was going to be the big death this season.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the one.
Yeah. And then the next thing you know, he shows up and he's got a little dirt on his face, and it's like, wait a minute, you just had 4 zombies on top of you, and they were all clawing at you, and yet fucking Dale came apart like a piñata, man.
Yeah.
So, but it bugs.
Dramatic narrative, dude.
I know. It's I call it fuzzy logic. It's children who are walking up to grown adult zombies and just punching a knife through their frontal bone. It's like, stop that. That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. These things could be these things are dangerous, but they're handling it like, oh, here's some shit we got to go around. No. Every one of those is a lethal predator. But no, here we go. We're galumphing through the countryside with children and babies. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I've spoken about the conspicuous lack of animals.
Yeah.
Around, and I think the night I was saying that, we were actually kind of both online together, and those rabid dogs showed up that they ended up eating, which nothing was done with that.
Right. Shout out to Brian Keene, by the way, who is the first guy that I ever ran into that had zombie animals in any of his fiction.
See, I don't like zombie animals though.
Oh, I think
I like animals living among it being a human disease.
Yeah.
To quibble.
Yeah.
Because I like our fuzzy little friends, and I don't want to see them decaying and trying to. Oh, what do they eat?
So where do we go from here? We're at 30 minutes in. Yeah. Do we want to? Here, I suggest we just sort of. I just sort of take us sort of slowly through the timeline, and we'll offer.
Go for it.
Okay. So,
lead the dance.
For expedience's sake, we're going to start with Rick being shot. Okay, which sort of sets everything up.
Still one of the greatest moments of the show, the way it was filmed, and
kind
of vanishing point.
Very vanishing point
to it.
Yeah, it had a real sort of epic sort of Walter Hill kind of. Okay, so then Rick gets left to the hospital by Shane. We discussed that, and then Rick wakes up. Rick meets Morgan. Morgan is.
Wait, let's go back to the hospital really quick.
Okay.
How Day of the Triffids was that?
Yeah.
I also want to point out some of the stuff and the references going down that maybe people are unfamiliar with, or that I think I've seen, and maybe you can correct me and tell me I'm crazy.
Okay, so
you can just tell me that now.
With the introduction of Morgan, in the first episode, we get a character that shows us not only acting ability but real loss, and how his wife is one of the great lingering moments for me in the entire series.
And she was played by a really great actress too. She's the drunken mom on True Blood, one of the shining moments of that show. Actually, I forget her name, but yeah, and to see her again, like you said, the zombies don't have to be boring,
right?
And somehow, yeah.
So okay, so now we have Rick in Atlanta again, full of possibilities. We're good so far, right? We're clipping through the book. Everything's going well. We got a dead horse. We got the introduction of Glenn.
I think we can still agree that the shot of the horse going into Atlanta is iconic.
Yeah.
And the scene at the very end of the premiere when Glenn radios Rick when he's in the tank. And see, that's when I thought we were going to get some true realism here, because when he fires the gun in the tank and rings his own bell.
Yeah.
Ding! And he can't hear anything. I was like, yes. And then the moment when Glenn radios him, hey, asshole. I really like those moments.
Yeah, those moments of realism. So as we rumble along, a lot of stuff happens. We end up on a raid into Atlanta, right? And that's when we leave Merle on the roof, correct?
Right. The amazing Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that show, I think, succeeded initially.
Yeah.
Merle
he was one of the first,
compelling.
a real compelling character, because you knew it was Rooker, and you knew that. So again, I guess as I'm looking through the sort of timeline, I guess our first deviation is Shane not being killed by Carl, right? Do you remember it that way?
I don't remember that in the comics. Yeah,
because in the comics, he has them in his sights and he lets them go. So
Shane.
What's that? Shane.
Oh, Shane. In Shane's defense, like the episode when they go to get the medicine and he lets the guy die, wise and frugal decision there. Get the medicine back. It was the guy's fault. Fuck that guy, as you like to say. FTG.
Yeah. FTG, yeah. And it was a great way to change that character on a dime.
And I also think Shane got a bad rap in the writing because nothing was ever done to be maybe a little empathetic towards him and the situation he was in with, what was her name? Lori, the wife, you know?
Who buckled like a belt on that.
Yeah.
As soon as Rick was gone.
Yeah, she was with him, and then when Rick's back, she's just like, it's over, you're just going to have to understand. Like, no, you had a relationship with this guy, and he actually really loves you, and
you may even have his kid.
Yeah. And he's probably done a lot of shit he wouldn't have normally done because he loves you so much. And
dumbass alive.
So I don't think he ever got the fair shake emotionally that character deserved. I would have liked to have seen a moment where he explains it all.
Yeah.
Maybe during the death scene when he's killed. Yeah. So this is why I did this. And
yeah. Well, that's the funny thing in this show is like Carl gets shot from a distance. A belly, through the belly, and he recovers pretty well. But then, Rick shanks Shane in the gut, and Shane dies right away.
Yeah,
so,
you got to stab somebody a lot of times to kill him. Not that I know that firsthand.
Doesn't work quite that way. But then again, you have these introductions, and I understand world building of, like, for example, do you remember the Vatos who captured Glenn? That ended up at first being like villains, and then they got turned because they were taking care of those old people. Do you remember that? Right. So, which leads us to one of my favorite moments in the first season, which leads us to the fish fry. So what you have is a group of people who have been surviving within essentially walking distance of a major metropolitan area, and because they're feeling like they could use a morale boost, they cook the most pungent fish or pungent food around. And it's like, this makes no sense. You should all be dead. But again, it sets up Amy being bitten. It sets up all of this angsty stuff with Andrea having to shoot her. By the way, if you haven't noticed, we're giving major spoilers away here.
You know what? That's almost half a decade old now. So
I know.
We operate on a 24-hour rule here. So
so at this point now, we're at the CDC.
Yeah, which a lot of people considered a total misfire. Mm-hmm. Again, I was grateful for something that deviated so massively from the comic. Looking back, it's an episode, but again, I appreciated the deviation at the time. They were smart enough to not weave that in later.
I'm grateful for...
I think that's also when you first saw fan reaction maybe having an influence on
a change. Yeah. I'm grateful for an attempt to explain what was going on, other than the generic government experiment gone awry. Or
I want to see him have to travel to South America and go to Voodoo Mountain and kill a witch doctor who's actually the cause of it all. But that's just me.
So I thought it was a way. The CDC was an expedient way to clean house, which is something that they do a lot in this series. There are episodes that take place where they're like, we got some extraneous characters, we need to trim the fat, we need to trim the group, and so y'all are dead.
Which brings me to, why have they been primarily black?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like the minute I saw the opening tonight, until I realized it was a reoccurring character, I was like, oh, here's the next guy that's going to fucking die. And it's starting to bug me, actually, because, I want to get attached to these characters. That's the reason I watch the show, is, in part, its soap opera element,
Yeah.
Take that as you will. It's like, it's soapy,
I think they would probably argue that we're still talking Eastern Seaboard, Atlanta to Washington, you know what I mean? Population, I would wonder about if it's not in scale with what the local population numbers are. I don't know. I'm pulling a lot of that out of my ass, but
right. I just wish it wasn't so much of a red shirt.
Right. Agreed.
On the show, know, and it's time to kill a Glenn or a Daryl.
Yeah, well, especially if you're gonna. Personally, I thought Aaron was going tonight. I thought that he was gonna be a little slow getting out of that car and get tagged and have a big weepy moment with Daryl, and then.
But he's not an original though. In my book, they need to take out one of the core members now.
Agreed.
Agreed. I think I'm gonna make a prediction. It just popped into my head. I bet the next original to go is Maggie.
Yeah, well, there's been talk of that. There's also been talk of. It's pretty evident that Sasha is almost done.
Yeah.
So now we're into season 2, and we've got the misplacement of Sophia and Herschel's farm, which
Lawn of the Dead.
Which was Lawn of the Dead. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going to be quick work.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to be really mean and say this. I'm really sorry that your daughter wandered off, and we've done a decent amount of searching, and we can't find her.
Yeah.
And so everyone's kind of lost somebody in this, and I'm really sorry, but I can't continue to risk all of these lives because your daughter...
Shane.
Yeah. I know.
Again, it's like...
You listen to that, and it sounds like a monster, but it's like...
Well, I think at that point, and to be Trekkie nerd about it, you owe more to the proliferation of the race. That's also, in the same regard, why I think a lot of people who were criminals and thugs and did some really fucked up shit would be very, very different in the situation of a zombie apocalypse, because your imperative kicks in. You know,
Right.
you're going to protect the baby, but if the baby's left on top of a car and you're 3 hours gone in a zombie apocalypse, you cut your losses.
Right.
You know.
Well,
And-
it's like mountain climbing. High, mountain climbing. There's always that understanding that if something happens, you can potentially have your rope cut. You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So we're at the farm. We have
Except babies don't mountain climb.
yeah, right. But here
They
we
should,
have
though.
now
How
an
cool
injured,
would that be?
an injured Carl. We have a Shane shooting Otis. We have Shane shaving his head.
We have Herschel introducing hardline morality
Mm-hmm.
into it, which really gave the show its spine for a while. And you know what? That's the one huge saving grace for me with season 2 is the inclusion of Scott Wilson, because he is a fucking great actor. And seeing the guy from In Cold Blood and so many movies I love inhabit the role of Herschel was super cool. And I mean, that guy could read the phone book, so to speak.
Yeah, he's great.
So anytime he was on screen, that show was still at least enjoyable to me, even if it was stagnant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which, boy, it did get stagnant. during
But
that
essentially, it put the brakes on things. Here we are at a farm. We can sort of chill. We can kind of sort of look for Sophia. We can settle in. Glenn ends up getting a piece of ass from Maggie. Life is good so far, right?
I guess.
So
for them,
at that point, the search for Sophia continues. Daryl ends up being shot by Andrea.
yeah.
And
of course, this proves this is the linchpin moment for Andrea becoming kind of the Ripley character for a while.
right.
Gets past being blamed for shooting Daryl because it was an understandable mistake, and her only crime in that was pretty much being a really good shot.
Right, exactly. And I think it was a way for the audiences. It was the first of ways of the audiences to start to mistrust Andrea.
Yeah.
At that point, we've got Glenn.
And her burgeoning romance with Shane.
Well, and the whole
point.
exactly. I was just going to get to that. But first, we have the discovery of Lori being pregnant by Glenn because she needs
Not
a pregnancy
pregnant by Glenn, but Glenn discovered she was pregnant.
Well, she asked him to go get a pregnancy test in town.
Yeah.
So
but
that's
she wasn't impregnated by Glenn.
Yeah. No. And later on, this is where we have further indication that Andrea has a shifting morality and that she fucked Shane in the car on the side of the road, I believe.
She also smokes.
Yeah, that's
what they say about chicks who smoke.
Then we got the discovery of walkers in the barn, which I don't understand.
Us to the end of season 2.
Almost. We got a little ways.
Didn't we always know she was in there?
Yeah, we always knew that. And what I don't understand is you're battle road weary survivors, and you don't get to a place and don't go, what's in there?
Yeah, I'm going to need to eyeball that real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to need to eyeball that. I'm going to need to look in your basement. Just humor me on that one. Anyway. So,
yeah, I'd be looking in the toilet bowl. Are you kidding?
So now we got the discovery of Sophia, which, again, everyone knew. It was leaked online. Pictures were leaked online.
Even if they hadn't been, that was kind of a little bit of a hollow shock moment for me, because I was totally expecting it. Just the pacing of everything, the fact that they didn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
They should have given up, and then she pops up as a reminder of their guilt, if anything.
Sure. But it's like
they gave up on you, no.
And it's what I call the Newt moment, and it's that in the beginning of Alien 3 when you discover that Newt's dead. It makes everything they did in Aliens for nothing. It was all over nothing, because ultimately the kid dies. So here's here's the thing.
So we have the Ripley role and the Newt role going.
Yeah.
on.
So here we have the same thing where all of this time of us looking and all of this danger that we've exposed ourselves to is now for nothing because the kid's been in the barn the entire time.
And maybe there wasn't enough of us seeing them expose themselves to danger either, because again, it was a little bit hollow.
Right.
You know, at that point, you know, I could have used a few more scenes of super close calls just because they're looking for that little girl.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and they're like, oh, fucking really?
As opposed to more asking questions of why Carl was in the house and all this hand wringing over Lori's pregnancy.
That said,
so then we get our first sign of badass Rick when he kills the two guys in the bar, which I wanted to see. I thought, okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Now we're off to the races. The whole thing with finding the Randall after they shoot the guys in the bar and they run out and they leave one of their guys behind, and then this whole thing about, are we going to kill him? Are we going to let him go? And Herschel being all, whatever.
Again, Herschel's character sets that whole thing up, though, because now we have the hardline morality.
Right. Herschel and Dale were the conscience of the entire series at that point.
Dale just started annoying me, though, on the show. I love him in the comic, but on the show, I was just like, shut the fuck up.
Agreed. And who completely spaced on this? Beth tried to kill herself.
Really?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Realize how long that show's been on when we go back this far.
Right.
I mean, the end of season 5, that's a half of a decade, man.
Yeah, almost. So now we have Daryl beating Randall. We got Dale dying in a field because he's
finally
slow, and just yappy.
He died like a bitch.
We've got Shane supposedly leaving with Randall and then breaking his neck in the woods, which... Again, Shane taking care of business, moving things along. Then we have the death of Shane and Carl killing Shane.
Yeah, which leads to my favorite moment of that season, which was the Night of the Living Dead finale, where the farmhouse is overrun. I was kind of like, finally, and it did send a shiver down my spine when Andrea was left behind.
Yeah,
you see the truck pull out, and you see those lights. Those tail lights.
But a great way to introduce Michonne. I think the image of her just at her wit's end, and then this crazy image showing up.
Yeah.
And then we have, so now we're at the Rictatorship. Rick basically going, all right, fuck this. You're listening to me. And then we have the prison. I don't really want to go too deep into the prison, other than the fact, unless you want to. I think
not really. I mean, again, it's just kind of like it's just kind of a whirlpool of not in a bad way, but sameness. It is a little bit stagnant.
There are deaths periodically.
Static. Put it that way.
There are betrayals. There are things that get in.
Yeah.
It's continuing the trend of like T-Dog getting bitten needlessly.
Yeah. I'll say this though, because it takes a while for the governor to show up.
Yeah,
and I think the time given those characters to kind of get more Pavlovian about things was necessary, because they needed to almost have to have a reason to group together when we get to
the introduction of the governor. It brings Merle back.
Yeah.
Merle shows up again and becomes
which is a little fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
That's a little.
Dude, that guy, without medical training, he would have bled out before he made the stairs.
Yeah.
So,
can I say this before we move too far away from these seasons? You know when they're on the freeway and they look in the saddlebags and they find the Heisenberg crank? No. There's a Breaking Bad reference. They find the blue crank and Breaking Bad wasn't over yet, so and that was going to be a huge surprise whether they lived or died. But I was half expecting a Heisenberg and Aaron Paul's character, I think Jesse, to show up as zombies in the prison.
Yeah. There was always these rumors of people that were going to show up. Yeah. But the prison gets us rid of Lori. Thank you, because she was a pain in the ass. Brings us this horrible...
I didn't like her, her character. I didn't like her. We wouldn't have gotten along if I was part of the group.
Agreed. And the way that it was, and you almost wonder, like, what were you thinking? Unless they were like high school or something like that, then doesn't make sense.
But she was a total opportunist.
Yeah. So you get rid of her. You get Carl really getting his first blood,
which was cool.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that actually.
Yeah, I would have liked to see it. I mean, there's a great scene, right? Mom knows that she has to die. Son sitting there with a gun. I always loved you. Blah blah blah. And this and that. And the next, he shoots her in the face. That's a drama, baby.
When you shoot your mother in the face as she's giving birth.
Yeah. TNT. That's drama.
Conflict.
And let alone the way no one has commented on like Carl kind of shook that off, right? So
say what?
He kind of just shook that off, like, yeah, my mom died and I killed her. Well, okay.
I could say that, like, in hindsight, that plays well into, though, like the one comment that Rick said, it's easier on them being a child growing up in that and not really knowing much difference, because Carl did start out really young in the show. That's another thing I've enjoyed, is watching Chandler Riggs become a young man, and
it's like a Harry Potter thing where you watch him grow up. And
he's got one of the most drastic arcs, just because we are seeing this young man in real life grow up on our TV screens.
Right.
But it's enabling a really nice badass arc, and of course, that girl. In this season, something's happening there. He's finally going to have a girlfriend or whatever.
Exactly.
I thought it was going to be Beth for a while.
I
thought he was going to get of age, and it was going to be like, I know I'm a little older, but he was scoping her, dude. He was scoping her. I think there's scenes we didn't see of him in the woods.
Yeah. So
with one hand on his knife and
easy there. So also we have the further validation of Andrea being questionable when she fucks the governor, and then we have.
I never took that as her being questionable, though. I took that as her
just latching on to another,
not knowing what the fuck is going on. Just having a run of bad men.
What is it? So Andrea's living a country song.
I had a run of bad men.
Yeah.
She told me yesterday she's leaving him tomorrow.
So this leads us to Rick and the phone, which what happened with?
Isn't it so cool? You could just get over huge mental issues like that.
I know. He's having auditory hallucinations, but I'm okay now. It's okay.
You know what? Again, to put my own spin on the plotting, I would have liked to have seen him come across a weed crop, and that marijuana completely alleviated his schizophrenia. Also, not just animals, but there's a lack of drugs in zombie apocalypse shit.
Well, there was some stuff. I want to say that Daryl had a drug bag in his bike.
Yeah,
I think. But anyway, moving on.
That's another drop ball. Get a cool junkie character on there who you get to watch kick while they have to fucking
right. So just them being in the room. So we move along. We've got Maggie getting tortured by the governor. Which everyone was talking. This is our Glenn moment, and that didn't happen.
I'm gonna have to stay mum about my feelings about those scenes.
Okay. All the stuff with, Merle and Daryl, sort of reuniting their relationship now that Daryl sort of found his place with the group.
Lost moment to increase Daryl's 3 dimensions as a character
Agreed.
There, in my opinion. They've obviously alluded to some kind of abuse as a kid. That little crying scene at the tree this season was not enough. I want to see.
I was waiting for him to put on Morrissey.
Yeah, he needs to come apart about why his character is how he is. It's time for that to happen, and then for him to discover again, like I said, to keep Daryl around, a new huge character trait needs to be revealed. Maybe that's your pathway to that. Hopefully, we'll see that next season. I'm calling his death next season as well, for the fact. I would be surprised if not, just for the fact that as far as the career trajectory of the human being named Norman Reedus, who's
he wants out. He wants movie money.
Got paid to think about, it's time for him to maybe start doing feature films.
Right.
And for any other reason, commerce and contracts and career trajectory, I see Daryl going the way of some of the other characters.
Right, and it'll be a big deal. It'll be a big deal.
Well, it'll. This is a weird analogy, but I swear to God, this is how I think of it. Remember the old Hot Wheel toy where your car would go around the track, then you'd zoom it again?
Yeah.
Well, that show needs one of those oomph things. It needs
some
that
spark
charge that
periodically to change the mix-up, which you would think would be add another character or take one away, which they seem to be doing okay with. Which again, at this point now we're rumbling through. We get one of the things I want to bring up is the Laurie apparition. Now he's not only hearing her on the phone, but he's seeing her,
Right.
and all of that sort of goes away.
And where is that? Why is that not reoccurring this season? Not to jump ahead too much, but anybody listening to this is familiar with this season. His kind of love interest happening. Where's the specter of Laurie now?
Yeah, and he latched. Again, we're jumping all over the place. He latched onto this broad in Alexandria pretty quick. Like he just met her.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, he's like going, "Oh, I'm going to kill your husband. I'm going to take over your life, and you're going to be the family I never had."
Hopefully, that turns out to be looked at as a weird trait in Rick right now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hopefully that wills out to be like, dude, you were a little quick on the gun there.
Yeah, you got to calm down.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have Carl like,
I was
dude,
just going to say that. Yeah.
You're going to totally alienate her. Now, next we've got Zombie Merle, which who didn't see that coming? And then we get the death of Andrea.
Daryl should have cut his head off and kept it with him.
Yeah, talk. We're going to get to heads in a bag in a minute. So again, we're moving along. We've got this whole governor thing playing out. Governor gets deserted, right? And all of that was continually them trying to reiterate, he's a bad guy, and everyone's spinning their wheels.
Yeah. What I'd like to interject here, too, is this is about the time I realized that the show was not going to be shoehorning every goddamn fucking pop song they could think of into it. You know what? To bring that up very quickly, there is a conspicuous absence of that type of thing in this show. You don't see somebody finding CDs of Pink, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It almost happens too little, to be honest. You know?
Right.
Where's the dude with his Highway to Hell, the Hesher with his Highway to Hell CD? That fucking, who's the guy who was leading him to Washington? The guy who overpontificates?
Yeah, with the mullet.
Yeah. Where's his fucking Back in Black CD, dude?
Right. Some old school headphones. But one of the things I wanted to bring up along as we're going through this now is the big spot supply run where they go into that department store and there's a helicopter on the roof. And how similar that helicopter coming through the roof. Did you think demons?
Oh, no. But now that you say it.
Thought demons.
Now that you say it. You know what I thought is I wished it had the call letters from the radio station in Dawn of the Dead on it.
That would be great. That would be great. And then there was that moment with, I looked it up, her name is Clara, that dirty girl with the ratty hair that had her husband.
Oh, right.
And Rick just sort of offs her, but it's like what? Where was that? Just spinning our wheels? Are we just trying to kill time? Are you calling this character development or world building? But it just came off weird and sort of shoehorned in.
I agree, and I thought that character was going to go somewhere, especially with Carol's history.
I do. I guess
I thought that was good. I thought that was going to be the surrogate. Carol's going to heal through helping this. Yeah,
that would have been good. See, that would have been good. At the time, I remember someone telling me that she was featured in the comic momentarily. And it goes back to what I was saying about having to, or feeling compelled, to wedge in. Yeah. Next, we see Carol teaching kids how to use knives, which is
loved that.
Yeah, that's great.
You know me though. I love movies with like heroic kid roles.
Yeah.
And that was totally like.
Well, Carl's turned into a badass.
Yeah, for sure.
We have an attack on D Block. We find out Lizzie is feeding rats to walkers. We've got
that.
Then we've got the disease hitting the prison.
I took that as a King Rat reference, but I know it's not.
Yeah,
James Clavell's King Rat, where he's selling rats to
I don't
other
think
POW.
I don't think that is. So
Anybody? King Rat? King Rat? Hello? Is this thing on?
No. I don't know. Anyway, so more people get sick. Then Karen and David fall sick. Karen being Tyrese's girlfriend, and Carol offs them and burns their bodies because that's what Carol do.
Carol's now becoming the new Shane.
Yeah, Carol's becoming sort of the epitome of what the idea of like, look, people are killing each other left and right around here, and why are we fucking around with this guy?
But now that you say that, she's really embodying the new era person because she's also baking cookies.
Mm-hmm.
She's also she's like, I'm going to bake some cookies and then I'm going to handle some fucking business.
Right. So again, now you've got Tyrese upset. Carol confesses to Rick and acts like it's no big deal. It was just something that she did. Carol gets tossed out.
I didn't take it that way when she did it.
I think she was like, this is something it was something I had to do.
Yeah,
it was for the better for the group.
Yeah, it was like a fuck it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I took it as her owning it because I mean it was a big deal to her because she kept it a secret for so long.
Right.
You know, but when she did it, that's another thing I like about the character. When she makes a decision, it's very defined. Her character has some very hard line shit going on.
Exactly.
And
even
like
when she's told to leave, she's pragmatic. She sees that's a good decision. As a leader, that's a good decision.
Yeah.
And so there's that. We've got a lot of other stuff going on. More governor, the introduction of the tank, Herschel being killed, which, all right, kind of fun at that point.
That fucked with me. That was the one death so far that really fucked with me. Again, because I love Scott Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the old geezers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And fucking...
But again, firefights becoming a way to get rid of clean house. We're moving on. We don't need this character. We can get rid of this guy. We can get rid of that.
And the moral compass goes haywire.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
You know? Good timing on that. I wish the producers and the writers would be able to do that once a season. Like, almost like when Kiss used to change costumes once a year. It's like, you're going to lose somebody that you really like in a season of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to fucking deal with it.
So now with
nope.
Go ahead.
Got to sell them action figures.
Yeah. So now with the prison breached, everyone's sort of tossed to the wind.
I appreciated the insinuation of child death.
Yeah.
In that, and the ballsiness of that, actually.
Yeah. And the introduction of Abraham's group.
Yeah.
Who a lot of them...
That's about where I left off at the comics.
Okay. So we go along, and we've got Tyrese meeting up with Carol, and first signs of Terminus. We find out almost for an entire episode that Carl loves pudding, which, real. I mean,
that's gone nowhere. Where's that thread?
Yeah, where's that? And then we get the really weird and sort of junior high feeling Beth and Daryl episode.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, dude, come on, this is your game.
That was really going to piss me off if he developed like a thing for her.
Yeah.
Especially after all the insinuation with Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to. You know what? I would love to see Daryl and Carol together. That would be badass.
Of course.
Next we get Beth.
Not going to happen.
I know. We get Beth abducted, and Rick running in. We run in for the first time to the Claimers.
Right.
And Daryl winds up.
Beth should have been the new. What's her name? The little girl that went missing again.
Sophia.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, we looked. Bye.
So then we get Daryl meeting up with the Claimers and all of that going on. They end up killing one of their own, as I recall, over a bit of protocol. For one of a better word. Remember, there was like something he accused him of stealing something, and he got caught, but he didn't really do it.
I dug the character actor who was playing their leader.
But yeah, great character actor whose name completely escapes me. But
big, scary, square-jawed guys.
So now we've got the introduction of the Grady Memorial Hospital. Was that a speed bump or what?
No, actually, I liked that zone. You know, I thought it actually came back to some of the stuff that may have been going on with Rick. I was actually surprised they didn't tie that hospital together, that it somehow, you know, but I thought that I like people having to fight shit off who are trapped in a building.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
I
would have liked to seen a little more like Day of the Dead, where you see like
right.
The
That's
cops,
where I thought we were going.
The cops are the cops, but you know they've been doing this a long time, and it sucks, and they don't want to do this anymore, and I don't get paid for this shit, and yeah.
I thought that's what it was going to be. Actually, I thought it was going to be their Day of the Dead season.
Right.
And it kind of wasn't. It was House.
Right. So then we have more the whole Terminus thing.
Again, another missed opportunity. I mean, why don't you stick out?
I think that Terminus thing should have gotten drawn out a little more.
Yeah. Again, going back to looking at things like almost like the BBC does it. I mean, in one season here, we could do 4-episode arcs. You could have... Sure. I'm sure budget has a lot to do with that too, but then again, like hanging out at Terminus seems like it would have been, now that I'm spitting it out, a good budgetary decision anyway, because you're using the set that you've bothered to build or that you've bothered to rent. Right. But yeah, Terminus should have happened more, and I would have really liked to have seen Denise Crosby in the show.
Not relegated to just a screeching harpy.
Yeah.
Then you've got the being reunited with Daryl and killing the Claimers, where Rick bit the guy's throat out. And am I the only one that had a problem with the implied child rape of Carl?
Oh, I don't think it was implied. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
No, they had him basically bent over, dude.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. So I'm going to give them...
I thought it was a good thing for the show because, again, kind of pussyfooting around things like tweakers, you know, and inevitable... I mean, you know me, I've always said in a zombie apocalypse, thugs will even become heroes, but you're also going to have the 1%ers who do the really fucked up shit.
Right.
And I was glad to see that rear its ugly head in the show.
Agreed. But it was one of those things where I thought, wow, okay, cool.
You thought okay, cool?
No, no. Stop it. No. The idea that oh wow, you're going to take that shot.
Yeah,
wow, that's impressive in a weird way.
I mean, it speaks to our tastes too. I mean, we have different tastes, but we like a lot of the same stuff. And nothing is like a slap in the face than child death or child endangerment. You toss that in there, and it's worse than a puppy.
Agreed. So we end season 4 with Rick. The irony of everyone being trapped in a railroad car and Rick going, they don't know who they're screwing with. It's like, well, I think they kind of do. They have all the guns, and you're kind of and they're sharpening belt buckles, and it's like MacGyver.
It's that and his make my day moment too, which I liked in like just the kind of fanish, you know.
Agreed.
Ooh, that takes a mouthful of popcorn.
Yeah.
Nice, you know.
And then we have once again the fruition of my girlfriend there, Carol, covering herself in zombie guts and blowing some shit up with a ridiculous ploy of a bottle rocket, but still she blew some shit up. Carol gets things done.
Carol MVP, dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, and years ago, you and I sat on a panel with Norman Reedus, and he goes, he said to us both, you watch Melissa, she's the one that's going to take all of this away. And I was like, whatever, dude. At the time, she was like, it was like first, second season, and he's like, that's a whiny broad right there. But here we are, season 5, end of season 5, and she's easily the tearaway character.
Yeah, good stuff. Again, to point at something that I think is very healthy about the show, even behind the curtain, is they have an older woman, and she's got gray hair, you know, and they've let her evolve into kind of a little bit of a sex symbol for some people.
Absolutely.
You know? I mean, she's definitely got a swagger to her.
And
she's alive and active. You know what I mean?
Aren't we seeing it now? You know, especially. Yeah. I'm going to jump ahead just ever so slightly and say the interaction with her, between her and the husband in Alexandria. I forget his name. Whatever his fucking name.
Tonight,
Yeah. That was like her quietly saying, there's nothing you can throw at me that I haven't seen before, except now I've got time on the mat and I've got a knife. And I've done some shit.
And an alibi.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the best part, is just saying, like, I can get away from it with this scot clean. Which we're going to get to that episode in a minute.
I wonder if there's something tangible that goes on in the makeup chair. I mean, well, of course there is, you know, to make her more attractive, but as her character gets stronger and ballsier, she does get...
Oh, I think as the show got more popular, everyone got better stylists.
Yeah.
But I think also they definitely did that. They made her mousy to begin with.
Yeah.
So now we get Bob, the whole tainted meat thing, which I think was more homage to the comics than anything else. The Gareth and the Hunters attack the church, and Rick ends up slaughtering them on the church floor. We now are introduced to Father Gabriel, who I don't understand.
He bugs the fuck out of me. I can't wait for that character to be gone.
I think
that character doesn't bug me in a good way, though.
I think he's meant to bug you in a bad way.
Absolutely. Mission accomplished. I get it. Kill
You're
him.
a dick.
Like, I'm done. It's like, I just don't like him on screen.
Yeah.
I want to go. And like you said, I mean, it's a testament to the character. Testament, get it? Huh? But I'm ready for him, for one of his thwarted self-sacrifices to actually succeed.
Some bullshit, yeah, right.
Yeah. He better have a choke on it moment. He better just have a moment where he just gets it.
Gets it, yeah. I'd love to see that. Yeah, the guy's just annoying. So now we're introduced to Noah. Carol and Daryl have gone into the city, and they know about Grady Hospital, and they've met Noah, and then we get the improbable van tip, if you remember that.
Right, yeah, when the van goes off the edge of the freeway, and they kind of let it like, hey,
that's one of those that falls into what I call fuzzy logic, where you kind of go, well, okay.
I was asking myself where Larry was.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was almost like you were expecting them to get out and just sort of dust themselves off and take off.
You know what I'd like to do is hack into Netflix and put a slide whistle on that scene, and then leave that episode there.
I'm sure it's out there. So this brings up a point where after the Hunters at the church, you've got the decision by Abraham's group to head off to D.C. And then you and everything that happens there, and I'm kind of skipping all over the place, but everything that happens there, they head out, you discover about Eugene, they get there, they find out there's nothing there, and then they come back and they end up all getting reunited at Grady Hospital. Beth has died, and Maggie sees Daryl carrying her and loses her shit, understandably, starts crying because her sister's dead. But a short time ago, you fucking left. Like, she was, like, in the group, but you took off. She took off to D.C., and I get it, but that's, again, it's that squidgy character motivation that, on one hand, you know, you left your sister in a world that you probably weren't ever going to see her again. But now that you do see her again and she's dead, you're a weepy mess. Am I off base there?
Fuck that guy.
Okay. Anyway.
No, and to me also that was a hollow attempt at trying to kill off an important character.
Agreed.
As well.
I think she had by then, I'm sure, gotten a music contract for that awful music she makes, and then
I don't think it's too awful.
I think it's really awful. It's like hippie
for what
chick
it is
in a sorority room banging away at Bush.
What
songs.
it is. What it is.
So
but if you like that kind of thing, it's really good.
Yeah. We get Carol now in the hospital, and that's awesome. Because you know some shit's going to happen. I know she's hurt, but you know Carol's going to suck it up and tear some shit up. And you got Daryl and Noah heading off to Rick to bring the group to the hospital. Okay?
Yep.
I love the scene with the fire truck because that was just fun. Watching him shoot it and them pieces coming off. That was
jets of water peeling the rot away.
Right, exactly. Eugene,
and I'm digging the inclusion of Noah at this point.
Yes, or as I called him, the everyone hates Chris guy.
Yeah.
So
really, really digging his inclusion.
Yeah.
And the tone he was bringing to things and
exactly
the spot he was filling.
Yeah. So then we have Eugene coming clean. The group heads to the hospital. Lost to Abraham for a minute, but he came back, and that's I'm still waiting for that guy to flex some muscle and
it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. We get the Rick murdering a cop, the hostages that they take from the hospital, which I thought was hilarious and a highlight of the season.
Slide whistle.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where it was like, oh, Rick, now I want to see this guy more. This guy's a fucker. This guy's talking about getting things done. Beth dies. What do we think of that? Again, you had said a way to give a death to a major character.
Lukewarm.
Yeah, I didn't care. Group reunites. What do we think of Tyrese's death? Man, I'll go and say I thought it was a little heavy-handed, a little what dreams may come.
It was that, and it was also suffered from the why trip and fall now syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
The woman who falls and screams as the monster looms in to do away with her. That's what it was like. It's just like, dude, just crawl out of the fucking way.
Okay.
It was.
Yeah.
It was logistically goofy.
Agreed. Now we've got the introduction of Aaron and the...
But I regretted it because I liked the character and I liked that actor quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I agree. So we introduction of Aaron and the first hint of Alexandria, which is now we're in the home stretch. We've covered a lot of ground.
Right.
We get...
Trusted him right off the bat. Again, not knowing anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's into comics or any of that shit.
He is into comics.
I knew it was time.
I have heard that. I like the idea. I like the idea that the cars, like everyone always says, just fucking drive over them, man. Just drive over them. And we continually see cars getting gummed up.
Yeah, their wheel wells.
In the drivetrain and stuff. And I think that's really, not only is it grisly, but it shows someone's thinking.
Right. But answer me this. Why don't they just get a bunch of old carpet when they go out?
Yeah, that was Jonathan Mayberry's idea, was to make a bear suit
carpet armor.
Carpet.
Yeah,
just
shit they can't bite through. Then all you have to worry about is getting mobbed.
Yeah. I think there are less cumbersome ways to get away with that, like a shark suit. But
PVC
read my book and you will find all my ways.
No flesh shall be spared is the name of it, by the way.
So, which brings us to the Aaron and Eric kiss. Really, people? Really? Did we care this much about this moment? And wasn't it understandable in the flow of the story?
The gay couple?
Yeah.
You know what? I think you might be surprised at the denseness of some of the people in the red states who watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah, well, I know I wouldn't be surprised. But, you've just
sorry
seen...
to say this, but you're American Sniper fans. And I gave that film a positive review, but these idiots who... There's a lot of people who just take shit at face value, and they kind of need to be shown. And maybe America does need to be shown male-to-male kiss right now.
I agree. I mean, I just felt
I get it, but
everyone was saying it was shoehorned in. I didn't think it was shoehorned in. I thought it was a natural reaction to seeing someone that you care about. You've just sat through, child rape and murder and cannibalism, and
the display of physical affection I found really kind of moving and more profound than any of the other examples in the show is when Eugene and the girl were watching the other two characters get it on. The redheaded guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somehow it was, and like I said, I'm incredibly conservative, but somehow they made it not skeevy somehow.
Right.
That it was just about loneliness and having to connect. And
so now the group is in Alexandria, and Rick shaves. And there's an entire episode where that's the best you can say, that Rick shaves, and instantly becomes a douchebag. Goes back to that whiny fuck he was in the beginning so long ago. I don't understand that at all.
Me either, and you just summed up my feelings about that episode as well. I mean, the metaphoric, he's shaving off his grisliness again in terms of...
Fuck you. You were finally not looking like a douchebag, and then now you go back to that.
He should have slapped on some mirrored aviators is what he should have done.
Right. So
put on the Judas Priest album. Or Iron
his
Maiden.
hair back. Absolutely. So then we get the death of Aiden and the notice that Nicholas is an asshole and a coward, and the death of Noah, or as I called it, everybody ate Chris. So
episode directed by Jen Lynch.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes. Great job.
Which you said you were really looking forward to seeing that. And
I was looking forward
to it. Yeah, we'll see. And you were right. It was.
Yeah. I thought the one thing I didn't understand
really
is there's never, or very rarely do you see in the show, and it was exemplified by Noah's death, that you never see anyone, like, there's a point when these zombies have grabbed onto you that these people, they kind of go, okay, I have to hold still now so that the effects can go off. You know what I mean? As opposed to, like, I almost, if Glenn fought his way out of the situation tonight, why didn't Noah fight his way out of that? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, he, in any other writer's hands, he would have survived that. But, we got to get rid of him. So, to create this other nonsense.
Because that was really premature for his character, too, for an exit.
And
if you're going to get rid of him, keep him for a year and a half and then off him. He's going.
He could replace every role that Glenn does, and also expedite Maggie's transition to wherever she's going to go.
And would have also been a wonderful bridge as a big brother to Carl.
Yeah.
A lot of missed opportunity in jettisoning that character, in my opinion.
So okay, now we've got a house party going on. I don't get it. I don't understand how a couple of things don't happen now that we're in Alexandria. Number one,
I don't understand why there's not a kid in play zombie.
Why isn't
house party?
Why is how have these people survived? And you can't just tell me because their fence is good.
How they get the walls up quick enough
that's a major job. And that's not going to go with the aesthetic and sell very many condos when you start opening it up.
No, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you hear dialogue when they first get to Alexandria that it was post. My sons and him got the walls up.
We erected the walls. I'm calling bullshit. Those are girders. I'm calling bullshit on that. And the other thing is...
The ones at the prison were better.
Yeah. The other thing,
sticks.
The other thing that gets me is the show has an inherent lack of communication. Like, Rick's group getting there the conversation should have been, listen, all things from here on in, we'll stay and we'll help if you want us to stay, but you defer to this guy, because this guy's been out there and existing. Stop all of the peacocking going on the raids between Nicholas and Aiden and Glenn with the establishment at the outset. Just a conversation happening. But no, it's more, they're just going to glump off into the woods and whatever happens.
Glump?
Huh?
Glump?
Glump, yeah, it's a Jabberwocky word.
Glump.
So now we've got the death of...
I think it's more a meandering, but okay.
We've got the death of Noah. We've got...
which sucked, but I appreciate the Day of the Dead visual homages.
Great. As soon as it cuts to the close-up and you see the dummy head, it's like, some shit's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you've got the introduction of Enid, who is a potential love interest for Carl.
Right.
Good. Carl needs to
girl,
be
the emo girl,
slinging dick in the zombie apocalypse.
It's going to happen. Beth's gone now.
Yeah. This thing with Sasha just going through ammo and just laying on corpses and enough already. Enough. Someone.
Sasha?
Huh?
Sasha?
Yeah. Enough. You know, you're obviously having trouble, and everyone's going like, "Oh, she'll be okay." When we've already seen that people die when people get in that situation.
I did like the visual image of her laying down in the dead pit. Though.
That was really the one. I was like, there's a sort of poetry to this that it's sort of, yeah. Really.
And it's even something a lot of us may do
in that situation,
but in that situation out of a weird curiosity. It's like driving with your eyes closed for 10 seconds. It's like, it's like taking 16 steps on a stroll with your eyes closed, going, I'll see if I run into a tree. It's just something that I could see many people being compelled to do. Sure.
And now we're at the...
it was a cool image again.
It is a great image. And they were smart enough to let it breathe a little. Yeah. Now we've got the Rick and Pete fight, which, yeah, man.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's hard to win a person over to your argument when you're screaming and blood covered and screeching like a madman. Okay, so I
didn't mind it.
What's that?
Put it that way. It was cartoonish, but I didn't mind it.
Okay, that's fair.
But it was cartoonish as shit. I did like the fact that at least in his blood rage, he hit his own kid, and like Michonne knocking him out, and that kind of creating a question of where she was at.
Right, which is always sort of
yeah. And if anybody is the moral compass of the show now, that Herschel's gone, it's her.
Yeah,
she is the level head. Maggie to an extent, but she's connected to Glenn, so she might make a bad decision.
Yeah,
if he's caught behind again, not being able to cut the rope. Michonne is the
yeah. And
so when she knocks him out, it's like okay.
She's a soldier who just wants to be home.
Right.
I want to. It was symbolic tonight. It's like I put my sword up to say I'm done with that kind of life, and then now I have to pick it up again, and it's very
really,
sort of.
I'm really glad to see that sword go back on her back. By the way.
Agreed.
We both love shit like Yojimbo.
Yeah. And the sword makes a good weapon for that kind of conflict, so that works. So here we are. So much time, along, and we're now at the finale which aired today. And what did you think of that?
Liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Thought a lot of cool shit happened. I thought it was heavy on the action, and it needed to be. Without it being frivolous, I thought a lot of the action drove everything forward. Barring Glenn miraculously escaping a zombie dog pile,
right?
Where he's at with that guy who he almost shot.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things where you go, you shoot that guy. You don't want to give that guy another shot. You've already given him a couple of shots at you, and he's taken every single one of them. So
he's making Daryl redundant in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Glenn's his character is
he's
really stepping up.
the punching bag. He just takes all this fucking damage, and then he's always sick or hurt or
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And one of the things I didn't really get was the introduction, like, when did Morgan become a bow staff fighter? Which it could be argued that over the last...
How Book of Eli was all that.
What's
Just saying. How Book of Eli was all of that. Just saying.
That whole exchange was like, just go away, just go away.
I fucking love Book of Eli, so...
Did you?
Yeah.
Because
a lot of fun. I put it there with no escape.
Huh. So according to the timeline, just so we're clear on this, that we're about 460 days after the zombie outbreak. So that's kind of where we're at. We're at 2 years down the road. I wanted to talk about Morgan. I just want to reiterate how fucking badass Carol was in this, again and again and again.
Going after the abusive husband.
Yes.
Yeah. Good scene.
The major death in this episode, I think, is one of the stupidest things I've seen. The katana death was so designed to get rid of a superlative character and really make you hate this guy and set up the end.
He should have wrestled Rick's gun away and the shot should have gone wild. You know, give that gun a reason to be in the belt tonight. Mm-hmm. You know, other than him using it on a zombie, shoving it through a zombie's head.
Right.
You know,
which was
abusive husband gets the gun because we've already established that they're kind of evenly matched.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of whooping up on Rick for a minute.
Rick's a pussy.
Yeah.
I'll say that, man.
You know,
Rick can't fight his way out of a wet paper bag.
So he gets Rick's gun, and shot goes wild, and there goes the husband.
Hits the husband.
Yeah.
Michonne takes him out the same way she took Rick out. Boom, done. But that katana thing was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was dumb.
Which led to Rick's speech.
But I appreciate a throat gashing.
Yeah, me too. Rick's speech, which I called the "Please don't cancel us. We're moving on to better stuff" speech. It seemed like I kept thinking, is this the plea that they made to the network executives? Maybe, kind of, sort of. And now the slate's clean. Now I get to throw my notes away. Now the slate is clean for like what can only be life in Alexandria.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And do you think that's going to last?
The battle with the wolves.
With the wolves, which
hopefully it doesn't become redundant. It's not another governor. You know, we're starting to see a lot of that pattern. You know, here's the other shitty assholes that they run across.
Right.
And it is getting a little metronome, so hopefully something really interesting and trippy is done with this conflict.
I think at this point, all of the characters that are major are firmly set. We kind of now know where they're all going to how they're going to react if left to their own devices, and that would be precluded by the studio deciding that they want to go off on a tangent. So I think, you know, we can still get to where we need to be to stay true to the comic, but I think we're at a perfect point now to start really stretching our wings and getting something of worth. And again, not just moving pieces around.
Maybe that's what the new show's going to be. By the way, what a shitty title, Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I was disappointed too. But they wanted to capitalize on The Walking Dead, so I get it.
Then you put The Walking Dead in tiny letters above it with an ampersand, and then call the show Fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's just going to be more of the same. I'm sad about that because again, it's the first time that we don't have a source material that we have to be faithful to. You know, we're often virgin ground. So, you know, we've gone a little long. The thing I want to get across is, I mean, obviously, even though I bitch about it, I mean, I enjoy the show. I hate watch it to a certain extent. It's the thing that drives me crazy. But I still hold out hope. I'm one of those guys, man. I think any day now, someone's going to get in charge and be the showrunner and change it and make it something that I can really embrace. But I don't think that's going to happen.
At worst, it's worth its brilliant moments that occur here and there.
Agreed. And like most horror films these days.
Yeah. At best, it's something to look forward to every Sunday. You know?
Yeah.
And I do when it's on.
Yeah, I'll know.
And you know what's trippy is this is one show I do not recommend binge viewing. You know?
No, I think you need that space.
Yeah, because it gets a little samey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you need to let it stretch out. And this is one of those rare shows these days that I think really works an hour a week.
Right. Episodically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just get a little breathing room. Yeah. Because they recap it anyway.
Yeah. I wonder when MTV's finally going to get their zombie show on. It's supposed to be Dawn of the Dead.
Really?
Yeah, for a long time. I don't know where that project is now, though. It's one of those tangibly on again.
Well, they're on it. I mean, look at the new iZombie, which you liked and I didn't. But
yeah, I still haven't seen the second episode. I'm going to follow that up.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think it's more and more. You know, it's like you're seeing it on TV. You're seeing it everywhere. So again, I love the subgenre. I just wish we could sort this out.
It's like anything rarefied. When it's done too much, it loses its appeal. But those moments of when it's done right make it worth digging through all the crap, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like I have said about how being a horror fan is like panning for gold in a river of shit. Yeah. You got to pan through a lot of shit to get to the gold. But when you find them, and Walking Dead is a fine example of this, when those moments happen, when they have that overhead shot of Sasha laying on those bodies, that's fucking brilliant. And it's on the fucking network.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that.
Politically, it's an important show for the genre.
Agreed.
It proves that horror can draw in massive numbers.
All right.
Massive numbers.
Agreed.
Super Bowl threatening numbers.
Agreed. And hopefully crazy. That'll open the door to you know. Well, let's do The Stand. Not specifically The Stand, but let's do miniseries again. Let's put these things out that are a limited number. They tell a story, and let's move on, man. Yeah. Anyway,
do we want to name check any zombie movies to cap this off? I do.
Go ahead.
Let Sleeping Corpses Lie.
Yes. That's great.
Somewhere between a Spanish film and a Hammer film with zombies that are of the Romero-esque nature. And,
agreed.
And a cool ecological explanation as to why the dead are rising. Some really cool set pieces. Not bloody.
Mm-hmm.
Just moody as shit.
Very 70s. A lot of wide lapels and big ties.
Yeah.
I'd say...
it happens in the world that giallos happen in, too.
Agreed. I'd say like trying to pull things that are different than just the normal stuff you hear in these discussions. But I'm going to throw out Doghouse. Doghouse was fun.
I liked that, actually.
Yeah, has a nice sense of humor to it. In the same way that you might see, it's not as goofy as like Tokyo Zombie, but it's close.
It's all the women become zombies, right?
Yeah.
And it happens at a guy's wedding.
Yeah, but as far as classics, I mean, you know, anything Fulci, we're going to throw out there because that's important.
The Usual Suspects. You know, it was weird when I hosted The Walking Dead on the big screen at this theater in Salt Lake City that was also a bar. It was always packed. Every seat was always full. But we would ask the audience before getting started, you know, we did trivia and stuff like that, and we would ask who had seen Night of the Living Dead, and the sparseness of hands that would go up every weekend was shocking.
Yeah, that's a whole when I hear from horror fans like, I don't watch a movie made before 1990, or
Ridiculous.
I don't watch a movie that's subtitled, or I don't watch a movie.
Or I only watch 80s horror.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the other part that gets me, because it's like, look, remember that river of shit I talked about? The 80s it was high tide.
Yeah. You're not earning bragging rights, trust me.
Or you hear the people that say, I don't watch a film in black and white, and you just kind of go, well, we don't have really anything to talk about then.
Yeah.
Tom
Holland was saying he was directing a project, and that a large number of his crew did not watch movies in black and white. And he was like, how can you learn about cinematography? How can you learn about, the language of cinema without...
Right. And how, yeah, exactly.
Getting its roots.
I was talking to a guy about action cinema, and he said that he didn't watch Asian films. And I was like, well, then we're done.
The whole world.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a whole world of zombie movies out there.
There is. There is.
If you want to know more, hit our Facebook page, I guess.
Yeah, hit our Facebook page. We'll talk about it. But we're going a little long, but it was an extra long episode of The Walking Dead, so I hope we didn't bore you with this whole rundown. I mean, the fans of the show probably already knew, the sequence of events, but I think it might have been interesting to hear a couple old Salty Dogs impressions.
And, I'm never remiss for a freshener, a quick kind of episode guide freshener now and then. I like hearing them myself. Keeps me from having to watch hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of it again. If I want to go revisit the last half of season 5 now, I would listen to this show.
All right. So I guess
I'm right there.
All right. So I guess we're done. I want to say, come back home to Heather Buckley and Langley J. West out tearing it up in the con world.
Doing some partying, doing some networking, doing some loving on the monsters.
Langley sent some pictures from Monsterpalooza to us that are unbelievable. Just beautiful.
They're neato.
Yeah. So anyway, please come home soon, and we'll get you next week, right?
Next weekend, what are we doing?
I think we're doing con culture, right?
We're doing con culture next weekend?
I thought we were.
Cool, let's do con culture next weekend. The culture of conventions and what they used to be like and what they're like now, and maybe a little talk about what we think they're going to be like in the future.
Yep. So for the bonus material podcast, I'm Thom Carnell.
And I'm Sean Smithson.
So we will see you later.
Good night.